oh yeah, they're fine with me. If that's all that is within you, that's fine. That's better than outwardly hating someone or discriminating. But that taking that step and taking an action that is loving and supportive and, you know, does something for another person in our community just uplifts so much of the other community, right? It's kind of like that whole random act of kindness and saving the world one random act at a time and things like that, because those are the little things that start to change things, and those are the things that are going to start to hopefully change some of those horrifying statistics of the trans community. So, I mean, I absolutely agree. And, you know, I think that we've talked around and round about some of these issues several times in shows on the Strong Stance. You know, we've had a show about privilege where we talked about, you know, and we've touched on it tonight because they're so inextricably connected. Last month we talked about the concept of not only outing someone, but the concept of post-transition and how we relate to that. And I feel like, you know, transition, whether you're talking about medically or legally, or the concept of post-transition and the concept of privilege and passing, it's just, I feel very privileged to be able to talk about things like that and not have to worry about where's my next meal going to come from, because right now I'm unemployed because the last time I was employed and somebody found out I was trans, I got fired, and there was no laws protecting me where I was living. And I think that, you know, people like Laverne Cox and Janet Mock and other people, you and Ruby Corrado and Mara Kiesling and Andy Bowen and all these people that are doing this work are out there trying to not only make this place safer for folks so that we don't have to rely so much on quote-unquote passing for safety reasons, but it also just makes our community happier and healthier, and it feels like it's growing because people feel like they're safe enough now to come out in all different kinds of regards.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying, please go.
No, I think one really good example of that, I mentioned Jen Richards earlier. She helps with Tony D'Orsay run the Trans 100. I think the Trans 100 is a really good example of this. But I also think We Happy Trans, which is a website, blog, Tumblr type thing. I know how to use Facebook, but the rest of it is a little complicated for me. So Jen and some others organized We Happy Trans so that trans folks can go either answering in text form, right, answering in an email, or answering via a kind of a video blog, answering 7 questions and talking about their lives in a positive way. I think that sort of thing, right, to take it back to passing, right, to this idea that having people like Janet Mock, having people like Laverne Cox, having people like Mara Kiesling and Mason Davis from the Transgender Law Center, like having folks like that in the public eye creates more room and more space for trans people to be different, right, to be who we are, and for other people, non-trans people, or sometimes even, you know, people who are in the lesbian, gay, and bi community to accept us because they're seeing a varied representation of us in the media. That's one of the reasons I love We Happy Trans. It's one of the reasons I love the Trans 100, because we have to lift up our own community, and both of those things does that, right? It gives us mentors, it gives us people to look up to, and it gives us an idea of the plentiful resources that are out there. They're going to have 200 trans people who are doing incredible work around the country. So I know that a lot of folks who are doing the national work get named a lot, but you know, the folks who are all over the country who are doing this work deserve a lot of the credit, and they're making it possible for us to have to pass less and for us to just get to exist more.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, and I have to agree with you. I learned so much about so many different things that were going on, as I had mentioned before, by reading that Trans 100 last year. And it was just so amazing because you learn about someone that's doing something on another coast or in the middle of the country in a place where you didn't think there was much going on with the trans community. And I absolutely agree. I had heard of We Happy Trans. I haven't actually seen it. I haven't been there in person, and it's definitely something that now, knowing a little bit more about it, I will definitely go back to. One of the things, that I just want to kind of reinforce, that I try to reinforce in every show, is that, we've been talking a lot about the positives and negatives of passing, and does it set up a hierarchy, and reinforcing gender stereotypes and all that kind of stuff. And oftentimes within the trans community, we talk about that in relation to people outside of the trans community. Cisgender people, non-trans people, and how they see people and how they treat trans people. But honestly, it has to start within our own walls. We have our own issues in various parts of the trans community in creating hierarchies, or saying that this person isn't trans enough, or saying that this person is just, that person just looks like a lesbian, that, that's not really a trans person, or, I just don't get these gender queer people, you're one or the other, like pick, or, you know what I mean, or putting more emphasis on someone who transitioned 10 years ago versus someone who just realized, how they're really starting to feel inside. And we have to lead by example. And I think that things like what you're talking about not only the Trans 100, but We Happy Trans and other communities like that, have to be supportive and uplifting, and when Laverne Cox says to love a trans woman, especially a trans woman of color, is a revolutionary act, I feel like it's sometimes even a revolutionary act within our own community. It is amazing to me, and it happens in every community, how much there can be inside hate, and we have to start getting over these issues, because like you said, it does give us more space to exist, because you see that varying degree of who we are. The trans community is like every other community on the planet in that we are a diverse group of people. We are just as diverse as cis folks. We are just as diverse as the lesbian community or the gay community or the bisexual community. There's no one way to be trans. There's no one way to transition. There's no one way to live your life to the fullest, as long as it's your choice to do so. And you're just, not harming anybody else. I'm just trying to be happy with me and in my own skin. So, I mean, I really just want to, again, thank you so much for not only the work that you do, because you do such amazing work, and I think that that's evidenced by, it's one thing to be part of the Trans 100, dude, but you were part of the inaugural Trans 100. Like, it was the first one before really anybody knew it was existing. And it's so great to know that there were 100 people, and that there was a ton more that weren't selected because it was, at 100. It's so great to know that there are 100 people doing this kind of work, and that's chip off the block. Like, we haven't even scratched the surface on the number of people that do this kind of stuff. And, so with that, whether you think that passing is important for you or not important for you, if you hate the word, if you're fine with the word, we're not trying to discuss this to try to say this is just absolutely wrong. All opinions matter. All opinions have merit. I personally am going to start to try to make an active thought every time I go to use the word passing, and maybe try to think of another word, or how does it affect someone, or have more of these conversations. But, to go back to what I was saying about having that many people doing this work, we need more. We always need more, because the more people that there are, like you said, the more space it creates. And so to that end, I know that you work with a company. I know that you're here as an individual. You're not representing your company, but I know that your organization does have foundations and fellowships and things like that. And I'd love for you to tell some of our listeners about any kind of positions or fellowships or whatever's going on with Victory right now.
Sure. So Victory is an organization that does a lot of leadership development for LGBT-identified folks. A couple of things that we have open right now. There's a fellowship, a congressional fellowship, where the person who's selected will get to work on Capitol Hill for Congress for the LGBT Equality Caucus for a year. The position is paid. It's really incredible. So if any of you are ever thinking about, I would like to work for Congress, this is a great opportunity. We also have something called the Presidential Appointments Project, where we work to help get out LGBT-identified folks appointed in the federal administration. And then one of the last thing about Victory that I want to mention is we have something called the Candidate and Campaign Training, where we teach folks the basics of how to run for office and how to run for office as an out person, whether you're out in trans or out in gay, out in bi, out in lesbian.
So that's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. So we have one in Kansas City that's coming up in a few weeks. We have two others, one in Portland and then one in Washington, D.C. in December. If folks are interested in any of those trainings, you should feel free to go to the victoryinstitute.org. All of the information's up there. And then the one thing that I do in my personal time outside of Victory, I've created a Facebook group called the Trans Justice Hub. I think if you just search Trans Justice Hub, it's 3 different words. You'll be able to find it. It's a space for trans folks who are involved in justice work to kind of share resources, talk about opportunities, and share jobs so that we're making sure, just like the Trans 100 and We Happy Trans, that we're lifting each other up and making space for each other. Other than that, if there's ever any way that I can be helpful to folks, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I think my email's on the website at Victory, and if not, you can find me on Facebook. I have a fun, my name is a very unique spelling, so you should feel free to find me on there too.
Yeah, and for those of you that for whatever reason can't find Jaan, if you're friends with me on Facebook or if you like the Back to Us Radio page, we can get you in contact with Jaan. And Jaan, you even started a listserv, an email listserv for trans positive, jobs, places that were cool with trans folks for those folks that were looking for employment. Like I really wonder when you sleep or when you see pre. And, it's just amazing all the things that you have done. So if anyone's interested in any of those things, please feel free to either try to track down Jaan or track down me, and we can get you in touch. But I just want to thank you again, Jaan, so much for joining us and sharing your experiences and your thoughts with the Back to Us Radio listeners tonight and making a strong stance stronger, with me one show at a time. So I really appreciate it. And for those of you that are listening for the first time or for the 4th time, you will catch us again next month. It's always the 4th Thursday of the month for the Strong Stance. I want to thank all of our listeners for being here tonight and taking part in listening to this. And feel free, as always, to send us your comments, your love, your questions. And, Jaan, I appreciate everything, and I hope you'll join us again sometime.
Absolutely. It was my complete pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. And to the rest of the Back to Us Radio Network, we love you as always, and have a wonderful night.